The air is a tangible presence, thick with heat and the scent of resin, damp earth and flowering cycads. On the shore of a primordial sea, the sun beats down with an intensity our world has long forgotten. Above, the silhouettes of giant pterosaurs glide on thermal currents, their leathery wings casting fleeting shadows upon the sand. From the edge of a colossal fern forest, 3 triceratops emerge, their movements heavy, deliberate, each a living mountain of horn and bone, the size of a freight truck. They are a force of nature, yet they are not the apex. In the dappled gloom beneath the ancient trees, a predator waits. A Tyrannosaurus, its immense form perfectly still, watches with an ancient, unblinking calculation of flesh and bone. This is the world as it was 66 million years ago. A planet ruled by titans, a vibrant, sprawling kingdom of life that had thrived for eons. It is a world utterly oblivious to its own final hours. Because from the black, silent void of space, a stone is falling. It is 10 kilometers in diameter, an emissary from the asteroid belt traveling at 20 kilometers per second. It is not merely a rock, it is a messenger of annihilation, carrying a force a billion times greater than the atomic bomb. When it collides with the Earth, the reign of the dinosaurs will not end. It will be instantly and irrevocably erased. In a single blinding moment, 75% of all living things will vanish from the planet, which will be scoured by fire and plunged into a darkness that will last for years. But here lies the profound and unsettling truth. If that celestial traveler had deviated its course by the barest fraction of a degree, if it had flown harmlessly past our world, the human race would never have existed. Our consciousness, our civilizations, our entire history is built upon the tomb of dragons. We owe our very being to a cosmic accident of unimaginable violence. To understand what was lost is to stand in awe of a planet that seems more fantasy than fact. This was the Cretaceous period, a greenhouse world so warm and wet that polar ice caps were non-existent. Tropical forests flourished on the coasts of Antarctica. Herds of Argentinosaurus, weighing nearly 100 tons to a single animal, its 10-meter neck reaching into the canopy, spending every waking moment consuming foliage simply to fuel its colossal frame. And where there are giants, there are giant hunters. The Tyrannosaurus was 7 tons of predatory perfection. Its teeth, 30 centimeters long, were not knives for slicing, but railroad spikes for shattering bone. Its bite force, 3 times that of any modern crocodile, could crush the armored frill of a triceratops as if it were porcelain. Yet even this king had its challenges. The Ankylosaurus, a living tank covered head to tail in osteoderms, wielded a 50-kilogram bone club on its tail. A single well-aimed swing could shatter the leg of the mightiest predator. The skies belonged to the Quetzalcoatlus, the largest flying creature in Earth's history, with a wingspan of 11 meters. The oceans were the domain of the mosasaur, a 17-meter marine reptile, a true dragon of the deep with a maw the size of a small car. This was a world of perfected forms, a planet teeming with life so spectacular it defies the modern imagination. And it was all brought to an end by chance. Our existence is not an inevitability, but a consequence, born from a planetary cataclysm. From the ashes of their world, a new one was seeded, one that would eventually give rise to us. We are the children of a cosmic catastrophe, our story written by a chance encounter with a stone from the stars, feathered and the size of a large turkey. But this familiar silhouette belies a lethal nature. They hunt in coordinated packs, a silent, intelligent terror moving through the undergrowth, communicating with clicks and calls we can only imagine. Their signature weapon is the famed sickle-shaped talon on each hind foot, held aloft as they run. A single precise strike is all it takes. The victim, caught in a blur of motion, bleeds out in a matter of minutes. This was but one scene from a world teeming with life, a perfectly calibrated ecosystem of hundreds of species, millions of individuals. For 160 million years, they were the undisputed masters of this planet. By comparison, our own species has walked the Earth for a paltry 300,000 years. Their reign was 500 times longer than our own. Consider that number, 500 times, an empire of flesh and bone, of predator and prey that rose, flourished, and dominated on a scale we can barely comprehend. and nothing, it seemed, could ever bring it to an end. But let us pause for just a moment. How do we know any of this? No human eye ever witnessed these creatures. There were no cameras to record their lives, no witnesses to leave behind their testimony. How did humanity first grasp the staggering truth that before our time there was another? For thousands of years, people unearthed the first clues. Giant bones, immortal remains, but as the skeletons of dragons. They were sacred, powerful, and ultimately a resource. These priceless fossils, each a unique window into a lost epoch, were taken to apothecaries, ground into a fine powder, and sold as medicinal remedies. Imagine it. The last vestiges of a creature that lived millions of years ago, a complete skeleton that could rewrite our understanding of life, turned into a cure for a headache. How many unique species, how many irreplaceable specimens were lost forever in this way? We will never know. In Europe, the narrative was different, but the conclusion just as flawed. The immense skulls and tusks of mammoths, discovered high in the mountains or deep in riverbeds, were held up as proof of the great biblical flood. Here, they said, was the physical evidence of that ancient legend, the remains of the giants who had perished in the rising waters. Monks would climb into the Alps, find the fossilized shells of enormous marine creatures, and see not a geological history, but a confirmation of their faith. The entire world, they reasoned, must once have been underwater. Everything changed in the year 1811. Along the storm-battered coastline of Lyme Regis in southern England, a 12-year-old girl named Mary Anning was walking. The local cliffs, a crumbling library of ancient strata, constantly gave way to the sea, revealing the treasures within. And there, in the rock face, Mary saw something impossible. A colossal skull, with eye sockets of an incredible size and the teeth of a predator. With painstaking effort, she excavated the entire skeleton. It was an ichthyosaur, a marine reptile resembling a dolphin, but armed with a jaw bristling with sharp conical teeth. Soon after, Mary unearthed a plesiosaur, a bizarre creature with a neck of impossiblest other unique fossils, becoming one of the most brilliant and knowledgeable fossil hunters of her time. She understood the anatomy of these ancient animals better than many of the acclaimed scientists of the day. Yet she was never permitted entry into the scientific community. She was a woman and from a poor background. Her genius was dismissed. The male scientists who purchased her finds published papers on them, taking full credit for her discoveries. Mary Anning died in poverty, her monumental contributions unacknowledged. Only now has history begun to restore justice, recognizing her as the true mother of paleontology. Fueled by the EN41, the anatomist Richard Owen coined a new word for these creatures: dinosaur. From the Greek, it translates as terrible lizard, but the intention was not frightening, but rather awe-inspiring. The ore became a public spectacle in the 1850s. For the Great Exhibition at Crystal Palace, the sculptor Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins was commissioned to create the first life-sized reconstructions of these animals. To celebrate their completion, he hosted a legendary dinner party. Scientists and journalists were seated at a full dining table, constructed entirely inside the hollow model of his iguanodon. There, in the belly of a giant beast born of science and imagination, they dined and discussed the dawn of a new understanding. A world lost to time, now resurrected in stone and plaster. It is a journey from myth to measurement, from dragon bones to dinosauria. Each fossil is an echo, a message in stone from a world so alien it might as well have been on another planet. We look back into this abyss of time, and in the bones of these awe-inspiring lizards, we find not just a lost world, but a profound and humbling mirror to our own fleeting existence. Across the world, headlines erupted. The public imagination was captured by a revelation from the deep past, the discovery of a lost kingdom ruled by terrible lizards. Yet the first attempts to give flesh to these ancient bones, viewed through a modern lens, appear almost comical. They were imagined as lumbering, scaled eval swamps. Their anatomy, as we now know, was fundamentally misunderstood. But this was the middle of the 19th century. The pioneers of paleontology were working in near darkness, guided by only a handful of fossilized bones, a fragmentary puzzle of a world that no human had ever seen. With the limited knowledge they possessed, they performed miracles of reconstruction, breathing life back into the skeletal remains of an impossible age. They were charting an unknown world with the faintest of maps. The true breakthrough, the moment that shifted our understanding from myth to science, came when we learned to read time itself. Through the steady decay of radioactive age of these finds was unveiled, and the result was staggering. The dinosaurs had not just lived long ago. They had existed in a temporal abyss so profound that the human mind struggles to grasp its scale. 66 million years. It is a figure greater than the number of seconds contained within 2 full millennia. Were each year a single centimeter of ribbon, the line stretching from their time to ours would unfurl across 660 kilometers of open country. And here, within this chasm of deep time, a profound mystery began to surface. A geologist named Walter Alvarez, while studying layers of rock in the limestone gorges of Italy, noticed a peculiar anomaly. He saw a scar in the geological record. Between the stratum rich with the fossils of the late Cretaceous period and the layer above it, where the dinosaurs were conspicuously absent, lay a thin, dark seam of clay. It was only a few centimeters thick, seemingly insignificant. But within this slender boundary of clay lay a shocking concentration of a rare element, iridium. A heavy metal, part of the platinum group, it is an alien to the Earth's crust. During our planet's molten birth, its immense density caused it to sink deep into the liquid core, leaving the surface almost entirely barren of it. Yet in the asteroids and comets that wander the void, it is abundant. To find a layer of it blanketing the entire globe was to find a cosmic fingerprint left at the scene of a planetary crime. Alvarez, together with his Nobel laureate physicist father, Luis, began to test this audacious hypothesis. They took samples from every corner of the planet, from the coastal cliffs of Denmark to the distant shores of New Zealand to the frozen strata of Antarctica. The story was identical. Everywhere, at the precise boundary between the Cretaceous and Paleogene periods, they found the same iridium-rich signature. The evidence was circumstantial but overwhelming. A global catastrophe had occurred. But if this was the evidence, where was the weapon? The search for the impact crater lasted a full decade. The discovery, when it came, was entirely by chance. Geophysicists, scouring the Gulf of Mexico for oil deposits, were creating maps of gravitational anomalies. Their instruments, designed to reveal subterranean densities, began to trace the ghost of an immense, perfectly circular structure, 180 kilometers in diameter, half on land and half submerged beneath the sea. It was the Chicxulub crater, buried beneath the Yucatan Peninsula. Its age, 66 million years. The match with the extinction event was absolute. Scientists drilled deep into the impact zone, pulling up core samples that told the story of the cataclysm. They found melted rock fused by unimaginable heat. They found shocked quartz, a type of crystal whose unique structure can only be formed under the kind of monstrous pressure generated by a celestial impact. They found the debris of a colossal tsunami and a global layer of soot, the ashes of a world on fire. All the evidence converged. The case was closed. Let us then travel back to that final D triceratops grazed in a valley. Their great frills a mosaic in the dappled light as they tore at low-lying ferns. In the shallows of a warm estuary, duck-billed hadrosaurs waded, filtering the silt for algae. A Tyrannosaurus, the apex of this long-reigning dynasty, dozed in the shade, digesting a recent kill. High above, pterosaurs rode the thermal currents on vast, leathery wings, masters of the sky. It was a world of sublime balance and terrible power, utterly unaware of its own imminent oblivion. An epoch, forged over 150 million years, was about to be erased in a single blinding flash, clearing the stage for the quiet, tentative rise of a new kind of life, a world that would, in time, give rise to us. In the warm, shallow seas of a lost world, the mosasaur reigned. A marine reptile of terrifying proportions, it hunted in the sun-dappled depths, entirely unaware of the forces gathering against its entire existence. Life, in all its magnificent and brutal forms, flourished, but 100 million kilometers away, a different kind of hunter was on the move. A colossal stone, the size of a mountain, had been traveling through the silent vacuum of space for millions of years. Its journey was ancient, its trajectory absolute. Its velocity was incomprehensible, 72,000 kilometers per hour, a speed that would dwarf a rifle bullet 1,000 times over. And its unswerving course was set for a small blue point of light in the distance, the third planet from the Sun. At a shallow angle, the visitor from the void breached the sanctuary of the atmosphere. In the space of a few heartbeats, it tore through the planet's delicate gaseous shield. The friction was instantaneous and violent. Its surface superheated to thousands of degrees, transforming the dark rock into a gargantuan fireball, a new star burning brighter than 1,000 suns combined. On the ground below, creatures of every description paused, heads lifted towards the sky. What was this impossible light? Why did the air suddenly carry a searing, oppressive heat? A primal instinct, honed over generations, screamed a single command: flee. But there was nowhere to flee. Then hell was unleashed upon the Earth. The impact released the energy of 10 billion atomic bombs of the kind that fell on Hiroshima. It did not merely strike the planet, it punctured it. The asteroid pierced the entirety of the Earth's crust, momentarily exposing the molten mantle beneath. In a fraction of a second, a cavity was punched into the planet, a chasm 30 kilometers deep, a void into which 10 Mount Everests could be stacked, one atop the other, and still not breach the surface. The rim of this wound, impossibly vast, collapsed back upon itself, but the scar would remain forever. A shockwave, a silent ring of pure force, radiated outwards at the speed of sound. Within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, everything living simply ceased to be. It was not burned, it was vaporized. The mighty tyrannosaurs, the armored stegosaurs, the horned triceratops, they were erased from existence, leaving behind not even ash. Their only testament is a thin layer of carbon, a dark seam in the rock, a final silent epitaph. Thousands of cubic kilometers of molten and pulverized rock were blasted into the heavens. Some of this incandescent debris was thrown with such violence that it escaped the atmosphere entirely, reaching the cold vacuum of space before gravity's inexorable pull drew it back down. Continents were bombarded by glowing glass and molten rock. From North America to Asia, from Africa to Australia, the world's great forests ignited. The planet became a global pyre, choking the sky with a thick, impenetrable shroud of smoke. And this was only the beginning of the catastrophe. From the point of impact, the ocean itself recoiled, heaving upwards into a wave of impossible scale. A wall of water 1.5 kilometers high, a tsunami taller than a 500-story skyscraper, raced across the sea at the speed of a jetliner, scouring everything in its path. It inundated the landmass that would one day become Texas, flooding territory for hundreds of kilometers inland, annihilating coastal ecosystems in their entirety. But the most terrible consequence was yet to unfold, high above the scorched and flooded Earth. Billions of tons of dust, soot, and sulfuric acid were propelled into the stratosphere, forming a thick, planet-encircling veil. Sunlight, the very engine of life, could no longer penetrate this gloom. An artificial night descended upon the planet. This night would last for months. Global temperatures plummeted by 20, then 30 degrees. The tropics, once lush and sweltering, experienced freezing conditions for the first time. Without light, the fundamental process of photosynthesis shut down. The planet's plant life began to die on a massive scale. The great herbivores, deprived of their sustenance, were the first of the dinosaurs to perish. As life withered on the surface, the planet itself groaned in agony from below. The force of the impact had sent seismic shockwaves deep into the Earth, fracturing tectonic plates. On the far side of the globe, in the land that would become India, the Earth's crust ruptured. Ancient volcanoes, long dormant, awoke with cataclysmic fury, spewing lava and gas, compounding the global winter with their own toxic breath. The world of the dinosaurs was over. It ended not in a slow decline, but in a single violent crescendo of fire and darkness. A random encounter in the vastness of space had rewritten the future of an entire planet, demonstrating that even the mightiest empires can be undone by a force they never knew existed. A silent messenger from the cosmic dark, a tide of molten rock born from the planet's core began to bleed across the land. For thousands of years, it did not stop. This relentless outpouring of fire would eventually cover more than 1 million square kilometers, forming a volcanic province now known as the Deccan Traps. The eruptions were a slow, grinding apocalypse, a symphony of destruction that choked the skies with poison long before the final cataclysmic blow from the heavens. The world was dying. 75% of all species on the planet were erased from existence. The undisputed masters of the Earth, the dinosaurs, were annihilated. Any creature larger than a common dog was sentenced to death. The rulers of the skies, the pterosaurs, with their vast leathery wings, were swept from the air forever. The leviathans of the deep, the great marine reptiles, vanished from the oceans. And the ammonites, intricate shelled creatures that had navigated the seas for 350 million years, saw their immense dynasty crumble to dust in a handful of generations. The age of reptiles had ended in fire and darkness. A new era, the age of mammals, was about to begin. But this was not a simple transfer of power. In the ruins of the old world, a new blueprint for survival was being written, and only a select few possessed the necessary traits. The survivors, from the smallest shrew to the most resilient crocodile, shared a set of common characteristics, a secret code for enduring the end of the world. The first rule was humility. Size had become a liability. Animals weighing less than 25 kilograms held a profound advantage. Their needs were modest. A smaller body requires less fuel to run. They could hide, burrowing into the earth to escape the bitter, sunless cold that gripped the planet. Crocodiles, turtles, and our own tiny nocturnal ancestors, they were all compact, their small stature a shield against extinction. The second law was a lack of prejudice. The age of the specialist was over. This was the time of the generalist. Those who could eat anything gained a critical edge. Seeds, insects, the roots of dying plants, the carrion of fallen giants. Nothing was off the menu. Survival was the only imperative. In this barren new world, mammals proved to be masters of omnivory. Their adaptability, their greatest weapon. The third advantage was an internal fire. As an endless winter descended, plunging global temperatures, the cold-blooded reptiles grew sluggish, their movements slowing to a halt. But mammals, with their high-performance metabolism, kept moving, kept searching, their inner furnaces raging against the encroaching frost. And the final crucial element was the ability to disappear. Burrows, caves, and crevices became sanctuaries. Underground, the temperature was more stable. The threat from the toxic atmosphere lessened. It was in these hidden realms that countless species waited out the worst of the devastation, emerging only when the world was safe enough to inherit. Yet one group of survivors seems to defy this new logic, a lineage that traces its ancestry directly back to the heart of the fallen empire: the birds. Modern birds are not merely distant relatives of dinosaurs. They are, in the truest scientific sense, living dinosaurs. When you see a pigeon on a city square, you are looking at a survivor, a small, feathered echo of a theropod that walked the Earth millions of years ago. Scientists unlocked this truth by studying the silent testimony of bone, the skeletons of birds and their carnivorous structure, an evolutionary innovation for reducing weight. Their pelvic architecture is strikingly similar. The evidence became undeniable with fossil discoveries in China, which unearthed dinosaur remains exquisitely preserved with the imprints of feathers. Velociraptors were not scaly monsters, but creatures cloaked in plumage. Even the mighty Tyrannosaurus may have sported feathers, at least in its youth. The birds are the last living branch of a magnificent, shattered dynasty. All their other relatives are gone forever. After the dust finally settled, the planet was a ghost of its former self. A thick blanket of ash smothered the continents. The skeletal remains of the air carried the stench of sulfur and decay. But even in this global graveyard, life stirred. The first emissary of the New World was not an animal, but a plant: the fern. These ancient organisms are the ultimate champions of survival. Their spores can lie dormant in the soil for decades, even centuries, waiting for the slightest hint of light and water. As the sun's rays at last pierced the lingering haze, they awoke. Within months, a vibrant green carpet of ferns unfurled across the monochrome landscape of death. Geologists see the evidence of this rebirth in the rock strata, a thin, dark layer known as the fern spike. a universal signature of planetary recovery that appears after every great extinction. Cataclysm is not merely an ending, it is a crucible, forging new forms of life from the ashes of the old. An epoch had closed, not with a final word, but with a silent green promise of a world to come. In the silent aftermath of a world scoured by fire and shock, the first sign of life's return is etched in stone. Across the scorched continents, a green ghost appears in the fossil record, the mass imprints of ferns. This is the planet's first desperate breath after the fall of an empire, a signal that the great dying was not the end of the story, but merely the end of a chapter. Soon the hum of insects returns to the sterile air. And then something else. From burrows deep within the wounded earth, small trembling creatures emerge into a world they no longer recognize. Mammals. For the first few thousand years, they are no larger than rats, their lives dictated by caution and fear. They scavenge for seeds, for insects, for the last remnants of vegetation, living in the colossal shadows of a world that was not built for them. Had mowed down entire landscapes were gone, leaving an endless banquet of plant life untouched. The terrifying apex predators that had enforced an age of reptilian terror were now just bones in the earth. For the first time in 100 million years, it was safe to be small. It was safe to grow. And so they grew. Evolution, once a patient, grinding force, now ignited into a creative firestorm. The vacant roles in nature's drama were filled with astonishing speed. Within a few million years, creatures the size of pigs trotted across fants of today. The world was being remade in a new image. 60 million years ago, in the sprawling canopies of the new forests, another experiment began. The first primates appeared. They were a three-dimensional labyrinth of branches, their survival dependent on two critical adaptations. Binocular vision emerged, allowing their brains to perceive depth, to judge the distance of a leap where a miscalculation of inches meant a fall to the forest floor. And their limbs developed a miracle of engineering, grasping hands and feet with an opposable thumb, a key that would one day unlock the planet. These were our direct ancestors, their diet of insects and fruit fueling the slow burn of a new kind of intelligence. But this entire grand narrative hinges on a single violent moment. Without the asteroid, none of it would have happened. The dinosaurs, in their magnificent and enduring reign, occupied every conceivable niche. The small nocturnal mammals would have remained just that, creatures of the night, forever scurrying beneath the feet of their reptilian overlords, with no chance to inherit the Earth. The primates would never have descended from the trees. The very concept of Homo sapiens would be an evolutionary impossibility. We exist only because 66 million years ago, a stone the size of a mountain struck the planet in the right place, at the right time. Now, let us imagine another scenario. Imagine that tomorrow, the world's scientists make a unified, solemn announcement. An asteroid, 10 kilometers wide, is on a collision course with Earth. Impact is inevitable in 1 month. What would become of us, the improbable children of the last cataclysm? If it strikes the ocean, the first to perish will be those who live by the sea. The great coastal metropolises, New York, Tokyo, Shanghai, London, would not see the rock fall. Their first and only warning would be the sea itself, rising into a liquid wall hundreds of meters high, scouring the continents clean. Billions would vanish in the first few hours. If it strikes the land, a shockwave of unimaginable power would obliterate everything within a radius of 1,000 kilometers. Cities would be vaporized into dust. Forests would not burn, they would detonate. Rivers would boil away in an instant. But just as with the dinosaurs, the initial impact is not the greatest danger. The true killer comes later. A shroud of pulverized rock and soot would be thrown into the high atmosphere, blanketing the globe. The sun would disappear. A long twilight would descend, initiating a nuclear winter without a nuclear war. Global temperatures would plummet by 20 to 30 degrees. All harvests would fail instantly. Animal agriculture would cease, the livestock starving in the encroaching cold. The central nervous system of our civilization, the power grid, would collapse under the strain, with no possibility of repair. The internet, our collective consciousness, would vanish. Global logistics would grind to a halt. Ports would be shattered or submerged. Aircraft would be grounded indefinitely. their engines unable to function in the dust-choked air. Trains would rust on their tracks. Within 1 month, the supermarkets would be empty. Within 3 months, true, desperate famine would begin. Within 6 months, the only survivors would be those with the foresight and resources: sealed greenhouses, generators, stockpiles of seeds and fuel. Yet humanity in a world plunged into a new dark age. We are the children of a cataclysm. Born from the ashes of a fallen world, our intelligence is the ghost of a rock that fell from the sky. And should the sky fall again, the survivors would begin the story anew, forever marked by the knowledge that the universe which gives life can, in a single, indifferent moment, take it all away. We believe ourselves to be too clever to fail, too adaptable to fall. In the face of a world-ending catastrophe, we imagine our own survival as a certainty. We possess technologies the dinosaurs could never have dreamed of. Deep beneath the permafrost of Svalbard, a vault guards the genetic legacy of our agriculture, a final promise of a new spring. In subterranean fortresses, some will wait out the long winter, tending to gardens born of artificial light and water, hydroponic farms powered by the atom itself. Millions, perhaps even hundreds of millions, might endure, scattered across the planet in sheltered pockets of humanity. But the civilization we know, the intricate web of digital connection, the ceaseless river of global trade, the towering monuments of glass and steel, this grand, fragile experiment would be over. The internet, the smartphone, the megapolis, all would become relics of a lost golden age. In their place, small communities would emerge, their lives dictated by the turning of the seasons and the toil of the land. Centuries, even millennia, would be required to climb back to the heights we once commanded. But let us turn the clock back and ask a more profound question. What if, 66 million years ago, the asteroid had missed? What if that 10-kilometer-wide messenger of doom had drifted harmlessly by, a fleeting glint in the prehistoric sky? The reign of the dinosaurs would have stretched on, uninterrupted. There was no sign of natural decay. They were a dynasty at the zenith of its power, masters of every continent and every ocean. But could they have made the great leap to consciousness? The evidence is written in their very bones. The architecture of the dinosaur brain was not wired for the abstract thought that defines us. Consider the titan of its age, the Tyrannosaurus, a creature of 7 tons, a walking engine of destruction. Yet the organ that directed this immense power weighed less than 1 kilogram. By contrast, the human brain, at 1.5 kilograms, commands a body 100 times lighter. The ratio is not merely different, it is a declaration of a different evolutionary path. So, the great beastench of the family tree, their direct descendants. Observe the modern corvid or parrot. In their intricate problem-solving, they can outwit a 3-year-old human child. They craft and use tools. They solve multi-step puzzles. Crucially, they pass knowledge not through instinct, but through teaching. Grant them tens of millions of years of evolution, free from the burgeoning competition of mammals. Who can say what marvels might have arisen? Perhaps the planet would now belong to the descendants of the raptors, small, feathered beings with nimble forelimbs, no longer for tearing flesh, but for manipulating the world around them. Their cities would not be of stone, but vast, woven nest complexes. Their language, a complex symphony of whistles and clicks echoing through the forests. Or maybe a different kind of consciousness would have prevailed. A world governed by the intelligent heirs of the great herbivores. Vast communal creatures living in herds of 100 individuals. Their societies built not on the individual, but on the collective. A shared mind, a herd consciousness, operating with the seamless efficiency of an ant colony or a beehive. Then there is the most humbling possibility of all, that nothing would have changed, that the dinosaurs would have continued, locked in their majestic, million-year cycle of life and death, the ecosystem held in a perfect, unchanging balance. No progress, no civilization, just an endless, beautiful and silent pageant. We can never know. It is a ghost of a world that never was. But what we do know is what actually transpired. The sky burned, the seas boiled and rose up in continent-spanning tsunamis. Acid rained from a blackened atmosphere, and a perpetual night fell across the globe for months on end. 75% of all species were erased from existence. The ecosystems of, and yet, NS of thousands of years, the first green shoots broke through the ash. The ferns returned, the great beasts were gone, their thunderous footsteps silenced forever. But their absence was not an ending, it was an opportunity. An empty stage upon which a new drama could unfold. Our drama. Life, it seems, does not seek stability or permanence. It seeks only a way forward. Through fire and ice, through darkness and ruin, relentlessly, ingeniously, finding a path to continue its story. From a world of silence, a new sound began to stir. First, a faint hum, as insects, the great survivors, once again took to the air. Then, from scorched burrows and hidden crevices, the mammals crept out, emerging from the shadow of the giants into a world they would inherit. Life, against all odds, had returned. A mere 1 million years later, a blink in geological time, the forests echoed with a familiar clamor, their canopies as dense and loud as they had been before the great fire fell from the sky. 10 million years passed, and new titans walked the earth, mammalian behemoths the size of buses, claiming the landscapes once ruled by dinosaurs. And then, after 60 million years of recovery and reinvention, a new kind of being arose, one that looked to the stars and dug into the stone, asking questions about a past it could never have witnessed. For life as a force is nearly impossible to destroy in its entirety. It bends and adapts to any challenge, to the biting cold and the searing heat, to corrosive acid and invisible radiation. In the deepest dark and the brightest light, it finds a way not merely to survive, but to thrive. Nature does not tolerate a vacuum. Though the dinosaurs vanished, their direct descendants, the birds, now fill every corner of the sky. The colossal marine reptiles are gone, but the oceans were repopulated by the intelligence of whales and dolphins. The ammonites disappeared forever, but their cephalopod cousins, the octopus and the squid, prosper in the abyssal depths. When one form of life recedes, another, often more resilient, rises to take its place. We are an integral part of this unending cycle. We are the descendants of creatures who endured the most devastating catastrophe in the last 500 million years. Their unyielding persistence is encoded in our genes. Their will to live is the blueprint within every one of our cells. This inheritance makes our own existence all the more astonishing, a fragile victory in the long war for survival.